What was your haha I'm in danger moment? When I was about 14, I chucked a teen angst tantrum and went for an angry walk in the bushland behind my house. Didn't take my phone, didn't tell anyone where I was going, just stormed out. It started raining pretty heavily after about 45 minutes, so I turned back to head home, but a bridge I had crossed had been washed away and the creek was rising very rapidly. I skidded down the embankment to see if I could cross, but didn't realize the rain had made it too slippery for me to be able to climb back up. I vividly remember standing on the little patch of rock thinking, haha, I might die. I didn't. I climbed onto a rock ledge, waited out the storm and managed to make my way back up the embankment and returned by a different route. By that point, had been gone for about 4 hours and had escaped death only to be almost killed by my parents. I didn't. Plot twist. I was on a bouncy castle at a college ball and my friend turned the pump off as a prank. My head was sealed in the deflating plastic and I was suffocating, kicking my legs wildly trying to free myself. I had almost passed out when someone noticed and pulled me out. It would have been quite an ignominious end. Great prank. What else does he do for kicks? Cut people's brakes. Put poisoning people's tea, haha, so funny when you see their face turning blue, lol. So I was walking to my school, and there's this little street with 2 lanes that leads onto the highway that you need to pass to get to my school. I usually wait till everyone has passed, since no one respects the yield, but that day, the guy in the right lane actually yielded, which was awesome, so I made my way across. Suddenly, as I passed through the right lane and entered the left lane, before my mind could process anything, my body just straight up stopped moving. I was briefly confused before I felt 2 cars barely graze both my front and back side. Apparently the guy on the right started driving again as soon as I was out of his lane, and at the same time, a guy behind him was being impatient and jumped to the left lane without stopping for me. So they both passed me at the same time while I survived by being frozen in the minor gap between the two. Honestly, my subconscious is the only reason I'm alive today. Both of those men need to be arrested. Passing people at crosswalks needs to be a felony offense. When I was in kindergarten, a first-grade girl was killed in an accident exactly like this one. The girl acted as a cushion for the mom who was also hit but survived. Went to a neighbor's house to help him decide on how to rearrange his living room furniture. First thing he did was start playing music on his TV at full volume, then went to his back bedroom and asked me to come look at a chair in there. I dipped. This is so creepy, I hate it. Yeah, it kinda reminds me of the axe scene in American Psycho. The day I moved into a new apartment and noticed pry marks on the door. I was staying in a hotel in Manhattan and I woke up to 3 empty beer cans on my balcony. I didn't drink beer on my balcony. They were most likely tossed up there by drunk people. A couple of days ago I was working up a tree. The tree in question was a black locust that was dying at the top. However, the base looked fine. I set about slowly dismantling the tree, which was an awkward task because I couldn't get as high up onto the tree as I wanted due to the decay, and it was growing over a building, so I couldn't just let bits free fall. After an hour or so of working, I heard a snap about a meter above me while I was about 13 meters up into the crown. I looked up to see a long branch above me that was growing into the crown of another tree had snapped. I realized instantly that this meant that the base of the tree I was in had failed and I was going to go down with it if I didn't get out. Before I could even react, the tree was free falling down towards the outbuilding that I had been working so hard to avoid. Time slowed down and I could see my colleagues standing in the woodland watching me with pure fear on their faces. After that, it's hard to put my thoughts into words, but I remember looking down at where the tree was going to land and thinking that it's weird because this second I am completely lucid, but a second from not I will probably be unconscious. Possible never to regain consciousness. Yet I didn't feel any panic, just a knowing that I'm in extreme danger. All I could do was grab the nearest branch and plant me feet on another one and hope to God that I didn't end up under any part of the tree. After what seemed like forever, the tree came down onto the roof of the outbuilding. I had probably traveled 10 meters vertically and about the same laterally. The large limbs of the tree that were previously to my right but were now above me didn't snap and crush me like I was sure they would. I managed to hold onto my branch and stayed roughly in the middle of the tree. I was free from injury other than a twisted ankle and a twinge in my wrist from holding on tight as the tree smashed down. I don't know how I didn't get seriously fucked up by that tree, and I don't know why it failed on me, but I will never forget that knowing that I'm I'm in danger, falling with tons of wood and there's nothing I can do about it. That was one of us story. I'm glad you didn't die. My third year fighting forest fire, I was upgraded to pump truck operator for a mop-up crew. After a section of the fire was deemed extinguished, they send in mop-up to make sure it's actually really out. I drove a giant pickup truck with a huge tank of soapy water and filled up portable water bags for the mop-up fighters. On my way back to base I had a bit of water left when I saw plumes of white smoke. You're urged to extinguish all smoke because no one wants a dead fire to come back to life. There's a fallen tree next to a bunch of bushes, and another half-fallen tree, and the half-fallen tree is spewing hot coals every couple seconds with a loud pop. Each pop of hot coals makes the other wood products take off. The fire was at risk of starting over again. Right here lol. I had nothing but an ant bladder bag. I bounded down to the pump truck, grabbed a hose, ran it up, bounded down, turned the hose on, ran up, and began attacking the situation. As I'm chasing down the heat and fuel source, I realize I'm surrounded by flammable objects. Soon after, I'm surrounded by giant flames. Alone I was literally screaming and laughing as I hacked and sprayed away at the rising flames. I got it tamed down after soaking and chopping killed the main source. I also sprayed the out of branches so soapy water was dripping everywhere. I had just finished rolling the hose back up and was catching my breath when these Marines came running up the hill. They were sent to investigate the smoky mess I'd been dealing with. Being high-fived by a Marine is a good feeling. As soon as you said, screaming and laughing, I understood what you were feeling. How hard did you crash after the adrenaline wore off? When I was a teenager, my mother was in the hospital and I overheard my stepfather answering the door at 2 a.m. and talking about getting rid of them tomorrow night and his gun. I was 100% sure he was going to kill my sister and me. What happened if you don't mind me asking? Told our mother the next morning, who forced her medical release and made us sleep at our grandparents' house, forced him to move out and broke up with him. But, apparently, she didn't think it was serious enough to contact any authorities. Falling off a bridge into water right next to a stingray with dead sharks drifting by, of course, is Australia. I drove through a notorious neighborhood back in my hometown and the engine had become entirely cut off. Apparently my dumbass had it on third gear for a couple of hours. I got robbed that night but thankfully there was no carjacking. Not easy to jack a car if you have to do so by pushing it away. You joke but I once had my Honda Civic stolen 3 times in 6 days. Each time it was found abandoned and towed to a different location, then stolen again before the insurance adjuster could even look at it. The second time they stole parts from the engine before abandoning it, and the third time they pushed it down the street before stealing the seats. When my intoxicated friend knocked over another guy's pint by accident and then his drunken brain decided he could take on the guy. The guy was built like a brick house, and his friends were all huge. They were the type of guys that don't take too kindly to being challenged to a fight. We were 2 skinny 19-year-olds. Anyway, I bought Brickhouse Guy a replacement drink, and somehow talked him and his mates down from flattening the pair of us. Then drugged my idiot friend out of the pub and got him home. Some people should moderate their drinking. By the way, the rule is, you spill another man's pint you immediately apologize and buy the next round. Actually saw the guy again a few days later and he was cool about it. Drunk in Amsterdam wheeling around a guy in a wheelchair we met. We were like a teen, the guy in the wheelchair 30-something. Well, we ended up in a dark alley and 5 tall sketchy dudes surrounded us but I was too drunken, happy to realize it was a threat, and chatted happily with them. They started asking for money and I was like ha 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 no. All of a sudden this queen of a woman stepped inside the circle and told the guys off. There with me, had a nice chat with her, then we wheeled the guy in a wheelchair home. The next day I realized she saved our butts. Wait, who TF was the girl though? She must have been someone the guys knew, or surely they would have just robbed her too. That was the night I became an anime hero. Going home from a party in a shared Uber with some friends, I mistook the street for another one and ended up further away from my apartment than I thought. I put the GPS on and of course it makes you take some back alley. At one I see some movement near a car and there is a guy looking at me. I pass him, try to call my friend because he was looking weird. I walk faster and look back. He is dunking behind another car and clearly switched from his original place. and he has a small knife in his hand. I bolted from here, ran as fast as possible with adrenaline and stopped after finding a busy street. But when I saw the knife, that's when it went, "Oh, I'm glad you aren't stabbed. Attention all guests, a gorilla has escaped its enclosure. Please make your way to the nearest exit." Me realizing I'm in the primate area. Get in the gorilla enclosure, since it's not in there. Big brain move. I was on holiday and had left my hotel to walk to Livingstone National Park in Zimbabwe. My friends had visited earlier in the day and wanted to stay by the pool, so I figured I'd walk over by myself. Since it wasn't a particularly long trip, the easiest route from my hotel was following a small path between some bushes and trees. I'd been down the path before, but this time there were families of baboons walking down this path and no other person. I cracked on anyway, figuring that as long as I wasn't waving food around or getting too close I'd be fine. Apparently I must have done the latter and unintentionally stepped too close to one of their young, because one of the full-grown adult baboons jumped out in front of me and started howling at me, baring its teeth. Because of the noise it was making, it attracted the attention of all the other baboons, and two other full-grown adults soon joined the first in howling and showing serious aggression, all of a couple of yards in front of me and to my side. I had no idea if there were more behind me, but my instinct in the situation was to hold up my hands to show empty palms, stand tall, broad, and start stepping backwards and away slowly. Thankfully it worked and they eventually turned away and carried on, but for a short while my mind was having flashes of being torn apart by 3 baboons. I later found out their bites can break human bones, so I'm pretty lucky that my instinct in the situation was the correct one. My instincts would be to walk towards them and I would have died. I was in Mexico 2 years ago walking back to my aunt's home with some of my family. It was late in the day, after a party, and I walked ahead of my group when I came across 2 big stray dogs. They started barking and moving towards me when my body decided to charge at them with my hands in the air while streaming. They charged at me as well but backed off when my group of 7 caught up to me. If I wasn't with my family I would probably have died. Edit. Some memories came rushing back. I remember my dad letting out a loud no, and by loud, I mean very loud, like louder than the dog's barks. Mom. That means the same thing in a different way when you're older and live out of state from your parents. Mom. Oh, I'm dead. Mom. Oh, grandma's dead. I guess you haven't reached the age where it's, oh, dad's dead. Stood between my mate and a guy in a motorcycle gang during a bar altercation. Didn't think that one through, and luckily made it out without injury. Private pilot story. Just on a return flight with a few mates back to local aerodrome. Looked down at rudder pedals and noticed the